Hey, hi, hello. Welcome to episode 115 of Trail Society, brought to you by Rabbit. I'm Corrine Malcolm,
I'm Keely Henninger.
And I'm Hillary Allen.
and it is winter. I've gotten so many texts this week being like, hey, are you flooded out yet? And it's like, no, because I live on a hill in Seattle, but everything east of us, everything north of us, and everything south of us got very, very wet. I know Hillary's had the first bit of snow and cold
Mhm.
in Boulder. Keely and I are deep into mud and rain season. We're having to be a little bit more selective about what clothing we decide to wear because everything comes back brown. And I'm just wondering, I know for me, having extra people to plod through the big dark is really important. And I'm wondering how you guys are both doing surviving the big, dark, wet, cold, muddy, snowy messes that we are trying to run through.
Uh, I've like the first winter in Colorado, especially because it's been so warm. It was like a really nice fall, but it was so warm. So that meant like, of course, the first freeze was like the Pacific Northwest, which meant it was like an ice storm. So, that was a little bit challenging, because I have a very averse, I don't know, relationship with ice. So just being creative and like just basically trying to be, it was a little bit harder because I'm not as flexible like at the times of day that I could run. So just kind of embracing it, picking something that might not be so aesthetically pleasing just out of safety. Yeah, but it's okay. It is what it is. I'm happy for the moisture and the change of season.
We have too much moisture. I rode the bike trainer the other day and watched Netflix instead of
Doing
going
that too.
outside because it was not worth it. How are you doing, Keely? You drowning down in Portland?
It's been lovely the last 2 days. So I feel like Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday felt like a blur because every day felt the exact same. It was just like raining and gray all day for the entire, 12 hours or 24 hours, whatever. But now it's been lovely. And luckily for me, I have a group of girls who run really early. So we get out at like 5:30. And in my mind, if it's raining at 5:30 or dark at 5:30 or cold at 5:30, it's still 5:30 and it kind of stinks either way. So like I think that's the only way to get through like the crappy rainy season is to run super early because otherwise if I watch it rain all day and it's cold and gray, I'm not gonna go. That's just silly and miserable. But yeah, but it's definitely the season. Like the other day, JT was like, "Why does our closet smell like maybe we didn't paint it?" And I was like, "Oh, it's my shoes. It's fine. It's me. I have to take care of my stuff." It's like, how do people live while they're in med school? Like, when do they do laundry? I don't understand.
Yeah, I have to like dry everything before it goes in the hamper. Otherwise, our hamper will
Mhm.
legitimately mold. We didn't have internet. Keely the other day, we like when it was really, really rainy and really windy, we didn't lose power, but we lost internet for like 6 hours. And I was like, oh my God, Steven, my job is internet. Like, what do I do? Like, I can't even tether. Like, our cell service is not great. I was like, my
Mm.
job is internet. I felt like I was off the grid. I like did laundry, which I'd been putting off. I like took Pete for a walk, but I was like, yeah, it is. It's been wet. It's been difficult, and we are barely skating by, but we're staying warm and cozy and snuggly. And I noticed, Keely, that you're wearing a little holiday coziness right now.
Oh my
Mm.
goodness. Yeah. And you guys all have them too that were matching. But yeah, Rabbit has some super cozy stuff. They have this high country pullover that's like a quarter zip. And we have it in the light gray, but they have some other colors too. And they're very cozy, and I highly recommend. They have a lot of really cozy stuff for this season. I know Corinne said you guys some matching shorts that are like quilted shorts. Sound beautiful. And
I've
there's also
been
a
walking
matching
around in them.
pant set, and the
Yeah.
pants are also amazing.
And before we hit record, I said, you know what? I just recently got the updated speed tights and they're brown, which is perfect for mud season
Mm.
in the PNW. And I really, really like them. They're super lightweight. You like get them out of the package and you're like, there's no way I'm fitting into these. And then they fit perfectly. But it's Christmas season. You got to buy for your loved ones. You need to buy something fun for your running buddies. And we've been kind of dreaming up all the different ways to get cozy with Rabbit the last couple weeks.
Yeah, it's been so nice. Hilly, you been wearing anything?
Yeah, the one that like I literally just got that one, the half zip that you're wearing. I love it so much.
Yeah,
It's
it's so cute.
like my favorite thing. Like literally it's just my routine after every single run. It's like doesn't matter how
Hmm.
short it is. I literally just like it's just kind of weird. Like
Yeah.
even at like a trailhead or parking lot, I like take off my wet clothes and my sports bra and I put that on and
Hmm.
my recovery slides and I'm like, okay, I'm good.
Yep.
And then sometimes they
Totally.
don't change the rest of the day, especially if it's cold. That's probably not something to admit, but yeah. Mm.
Oh
I'm
yeah.
always like, I'm going to the gym later. I'm going to shower later
Yeah,
and
I
it's
know.
fine.
It's
And then
like,
I don't go to the gym. And then I'm
Yep.
like, I still need to shower.
100%. I think I wear the same exact outfit now when I'm studying all day because like I'm not leaving the house. Why am I gonna put on fancy pants that are tight? Like that sounds lame. So it's like loose pants and this crop like fleece. That's my jam. But if you guys want to be on the lazy train with us and like be so cozy while you're in your house in this crazy cold season, you can go over to runningrabbit.com and use our code for December. It's Hoppy Holidays. So Hoppy as in Hoppy holidays. It's another pun. They're very good with those for 10% off.
Awesome. Speaking of having people to survive the weather with, we're going to talk about something that's very aligned, I think, today, kind of talking about resilience and coaching and kind of that how those two things work together in sport, but specifically in trail and ultra running. Before we do that, though, we got some fun things that we have to hit on. CIM marathon just happened. Now, when this comes out about 2 weeks ago, we were kind of all waiting to see how the trail boys and girls would do. But I have to give a shout out that 55 women ran under 2:37, which is the OTQ for women. 55. Like that is absolutely mind blowing. I think they had 250 women go under 3 hours at the event. So
Mm.
super, super stellar running all around. The conditions were great. Courtney DeWalter stuck with that 2:37 group through mile 21 before ultimately slipping back and finishing in like 2:38:55 or something, like 2 minutes off, less than 2 minutes off the OTQ. And my favorite thing are the pictures of her wearing her short knees and her long, like kind of tall tee and her gooder sunglasses, like in the 2:37 pack of women is just like chef's kiss. It's so, so good. And I was tracking her and tracking her and tracking her. And at like the 20-21 mile mark, her projected finish time was 2:37:01. And I was like texting Dylan Bowman, being like, get your popcorn out. Like she's so close and faded ever so slightly.
Yeah.
Other
Or
trail
like
folks
ran at like a 2:39 or something, 2:38:50
just
yeah.
yeah,
something.
just
Yeah.
under 2:39, like
Hmm.
stupid fast. Kind of also in that same boat, falling off the pace ever so slightly. Riley Brady ran 2:41 in change, and then obviously we all know Slim Christian Allen was
Mm.
third in the men's race, running 2:09,
Hmm.
like something super fast and super dumb. Really talented trail athlete, was at on the world's team this fall, just absolutely slaying the marathon. But also wanted to give a shout out to a runner who is in the trail space, who's run Speed Goat 28K, who ran OCC this year. Her name's Cody Clevin, and she ran a 2:29 as part of the group of 55 women that snagged OTQs on the day, and that is scary fast running. So we got a bunch of trail baddies that showed up over the weekend and just really wanted to give them a shout out. Also, previous podcast guest Morgan Smith, who was a postdoc at Stanford. I knew that she was leaving her postdoc position at Stanford, and I was so excited to see where she landed. She has moved to Atlanta and has become the senior performance coach for the women's youth national team for USA Soccer.
Hmm.
Like was just in Europe with the team. Is based out of Atlanta now, working as their performance coach, which is really really cool. And that comes along with the announcement out of USA Soccer. They announced finally that the Kang Women's Institute, backed by Michelle Kang. We've talked about this donation in the past because in 2024 she donated $30 million, and then in April 2025 backed that up with another $25 million donation. And it's specifically designed to it's designed and established to create research-backed best practices for women and girls in soccer. The institute addresses a critical gap where only 6% of sports research focuses exclusively on women, with plans to conduct comprehensive national studies and set best practices ahead of the 2027 and 2031 FIFA World Cups. And what's cool is that Morgan gets to be right in there at the ground
Hmm.
level. Similar announcement actually just came out of UC Berkeley. They just launched a
Yep.
women's research institute at UC Berkeley as well, with a ton of funding on the table. So, young scientists out there,
I
keep your
know.
eyes peeled. There's going to be some really cool opportunities, I think.
Really cool.
Oh, that's so cool. I mean, so something else that happened.
A Brooks Teamy, I think, is what you're
Oh
about to
my
talk
God.
about.
I know, right? Like I just have to. Okay, so like it's been a whirlwind. I was like hearing like the whispers of this at the vertical team where Cam Smith, he's been like a skimo athlete and getting like Anna Gibson. maybe like she like used to race downhill ski. Like she's a very proficient skier and like obviously a beast at the uphill. And so like getting her onto like maybe into USA Skimo. And then over the weekend there was the qualifying race.
The final World Cup, which is the final qualifying window for the quota spots. So there's
Yeah,
X number of country allocations, and
right.
there were a couple quota spots on the line, one between Poland and Sweden, and one between the USA and
Canada and
Canada.
the US, which that like head to head, I mean, this is like iconic. I don't know if anyone tuned in, but this is like a 40-minute race. It's a
It's not,
relay.
it's a 15-minute race.
Well, but 40-minute race total. So it's like there's a girl and a man, and that's like the girl does a lap and then the guy does a lap. The girl does a
No,
lap,
it's
the guy
a
does a lap.
total. It's total 15 minutes because they do the sprint course, which is a 3 to 3.5 minute race.
No, but I mean, it's
So it's
like
like, no, I'm just saying, like, it's like that's how head to head it was. They had a
no,
qualifier
I
window
know.
and then
But the
quarters.
actual race itself on Saturday, like totally, I was watching it. It was I think from start to finish, like the whole thing with all the transitions, like the individual races that they're doing, the sprint part of like the actual skiing uphill is you're right, 3 minutes. But I'm saying with all the transitions that they're doing, it's like 10 minutes that a person goes and then they sprint through this whole other thing. And in that 10 minutes, they're like skiing uphill and doing a boot pack and then doing like another transition and
Yeah.
going straight across. It's crazy.
Yeah, because their qualifying times, I think for teams was like 15 minutes. Like it was like freaking wild. Like they
Okay,
ended up
sorry.
winning by 40
As
minutes.
the non-skimo, can you just back up and like I don't know what we're talking about.
Okay, so
Yeah.
skimo is a weird sport in which the Olympic version of it is even weirder than the actual version of it. So skimo is ski mountaineering. So you go both uphill and downhill. There's been a skimo World Cup for a very long time. They normally race an individual, which is generally like a 2 to 3 hour race, and verticals more than anything. So like Remy Bonnet is a vertical skimo world champion, and it's normally like a 20 to 40 minute race straight uphill.
Mm.
So a lot of skiers, when they found out that skimo was going to be in the Milan Cortina Olympics, were like, I can do the vertical. I can get a
Mm.
spot in the vertical World Cup.
Mm.
They then they like built off and created the sprint racing component, which is a
Mm.
3 to 3.5 minute race in which you skin. So you've got skins, which is like an adhesive, like mole hair basically on the bottom of your ski for part of it. You skin, and then they stop and they throw their skis onto their backs,
Mm.
and then they boot pack. So they are running with their skis on their backs. And then they put their skis back on and skin some more. And then they get to the top and they lock their heel in to go from
Mm.
uphill to downhill mode. And they rip their skins off and they stuff the skins in a pocket on the front of their suit. And then they ski down through alpine gates. And that
Mm.
whole loop
Oh, wow.
that the skier does is 3 minutes long. It's
That's so
head to
fast.
head in the
Damn.
individual race. So I got to
Mm.
watch the individual sprint race the next day after the relay. And then the team races, yeah, is
Two and
girl
two.
skis, boy skis,
Girl
girl
skis.
skis, boy skis, but it's
And
one
Okay.
that
one male skier and one female skier.
and
Mm.
that length is like 30 minutes, right? So it's like a very,
Mm.
very, very quick race,
Okay.
like that
And
whole
then
entire
which one did Anna Gibson do?
She was on the
then
team relay
Okay.
with Cam.
Oh,
yeah.
cool. Okay.
So that's where
Yeah.
they opened up like the basically the first time for this in like in the Olympics. And um literally it was a huge deal. Like USA has actually never even podiumed at a World Cup in the team sprint relay.
Mm.
And they not only podiumed, but they needed to beat Canada, but they ended up winning the whole thing like by a significant margin and gap. And like at the very last section where Cam has to like, lock his heels in and like do the little like skate ski basically to the finish, he loses a ski and has to put it back on, but he has such a big gap that it doesn't matter. But yeah, so like basically Cam Smith and Anna Gibson are going to the Olympics in February in Cortina.
Cool.
Yeah. So yeah,
Nice.
first time that ski has ever been in the Olympics. But yeah, it was kind of interesting how the quota spots were giving out where North America, so jointly Canada and the US get
Mm.
one spot
Okay.
Yeah.
into the
Got it.
Olympics. And so that's where the head-to-head dynamic thought
Okay.
like came
It's
from.
all
And
tracking now.
yeah, so it's
And
Mhm.
so
like
is that the only skimo in the Olympics is the head-to-head
it's
team?
a sprint race, so an
Right.
individual sprint
Okay.
race and um a team relay and maybe a
Okay.
vertical.
Okay.
So they will get 2 to 3 races at
Mm.
the Olympics, and they all raced in the individual sprint the next day, but I don't think Anna made it into semifinals, and I don't think Cam made it into semifinals, so
Mm.
they did not make it to the A final of
Gotcha.
8 athletes that race head to head.
Okay.
But yeah, it's a super cool, interesting discipline in which it's very, very quick. But it's also like completely contrived and absolutely made up. So it's just kind of this like interesting
Yeah,
thing.
totally.
It's like when climbing came into the Olympics and they
Uh-huh.
combined bouldering and speed climbing, which are two completely different disciplines. But they're like, no, 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 you're going to do all three things, and we're going to do a combined score.
Yeah, yeah,
And
yeah.
climbers were like, we don't do that though.
Mhm.
And they're like, it's the Olympics. This is what we're doing for the Olympics. And so the Olympics has a way of creating new iterations of a sport that you thought you understood.
Mhm.
But what's cool is that Cam's been in the skimo world for years and years and years, kind of
Mhm.
being one of the champions of the US men's team and the champion of like skimo in the US, trying to make it a bigger sport.
Mm.
And he recruited Anna
Hmm.
and was like, I think you should do this. I think you should really come do this. And before Worlds, actually
Mm.
went with USA Skimo to an on snow camp on a glacier and then came to Worlds and ran the vertical and the up down.
Mm. Cool.
He's been busy. Anna's had a very busy year, is what I'm
Uh,
getting out of all this.
Totally. How
Uh,
cool. That's awesome.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so cool.
Yeah, it's very, very cool. So we'll have a friend, someone we know. We'll get to cheer on in February. Okay, are we ready? Are we ready to meat and potatoes it up?
Heck yeah.
Okay, Hillary is taking the lead on this, and it's largely inspired by her graduate studies, and we can't wait to learn more about resilience in the trail space and how coaching plays into that.
Yeah, so obviously I'm kind of doing more of a deep dive. It's like I've been doing a lot of research this semester, and there's been a lot of topics that obviously pertain to like what we talk about a lot with coaching and how like our bigger, greater impact on the trail running community and world. And this one, obviously, resilience is a pretty, I love this topic. And I've always wondered, it's like, okay, well, do you have it? Like, is it something you have? Is it something you don't have? Like, how do we develop it? How as coaches do we help develop it? So before we even get into the science in this paper that I'm going to reference, want to start in the trail space. It's like trail running. It looks really individual from the outside, but none of us really do this alone at all. I mean, if you haven't listened to last week's episode about Corinne's race, like that can be, apparent, especially the longer the races get. But it's like even when we're solo for hours, our experience is shaped by who helped us get to the start line, who believed in us during the rough training block, and who modeled how to respond when things went sideways or just, when things didn't go as planned. So I'm curious. I mean, obviously, I think we dug into this a lot last week's episode with Corinne specifically, but in your own trail careers, like where did you think the resilience actually came from? Like, is it something that you worked on? Did it come from a person, a team, a coach, from within?
I was talking to an athlete recently, and he's a pastor in Texas, where we probably couldn't be too different of humans, but we get along smashingly, and he's been a really fun person to coach. And we were talking about this, and we were talking about resilience specifically, just by happenstance. And this is before I went to UTCT. And I think it was actually like like he got this like quote from a military friend, but effectively his quote was like, resilience is actually just optimism. Like
Mm,
Mm.
that was like kind of the connection. And so that's what I took into Cape Town with me was like, what is making me resilient is kind of how much optimism I can maintain, or can I maintain optimism? And when I think about it that way, I think about, yeah, like that is like, I get that optimism from my community, from the people I'm training with. I get that from seeing someone out on the race, like on the race course, be it a coach or a spectator or a friend or a crew member who's saying like, hey, like you got this, or making me laugh and is like making me remember that I do have joy and that I am optimistic. But in my mind, I've kind of linked those two things together because I think when we think of resilience a lot, we can think about like being tough and gritty and resilient in that way. But I like when you spin it on its head and you can think about resilience in other ways, be it your knowledge that you are capable of doing the thing
Mm.
or your ability to stay optimistic and how those things can actually be the foundation of this like resilience aspect, which doesn't have to be quantified in toughness.
Uh-huh. Yeah, I think that's kind of where my head went too, because I think initially looking at this question, I was like, oh, well, initially my resilience was because I was like not super mentally strong with myself. And I felt like I was using trail running almost as this like experiment into punishing myself for like, whatever things that was going on mentally. Like I wasn't in it for the right reasons, but that was a form of resilience, which is not a good form of resilience. And so I feel like that kind of links back to our conversation with Jill, where it's like, why are you doing this? What's fueling you? Is it like this desire to look a certain way or to beat these demons? Like that does manifest as a form of resilience, but that resilience like fades away really quickly, right? And so I was like, that was an interesting question because it's like reflecting on it. It's like when I first started, maybe my resilience was fueled by this thing that was like very transitory and not very sustainable. But I'm sure it fuels a lot of people, especially initially. But yeah, now I think kind of to Corinne's point, I think about how I've evolved the resilience over the years as I've like learned to just like respect myself and respect the sport and enjoy the sport and like do it for the right reasons. Where now resilience, yeah, it kind of is like a form of like acceptance or like curiousness to be like, oh, can I push through this? Like I know it's going to be hard. Like, can I do this insanely hard thing? Can I like push through for 17 hours of states and like race the last 5 miles? Or like, what does that feel like? And so I feel like now that's like the fuel because that's like a really cool place to be to try to figure out where that limit is and like what does that look like when you get to that part of a race? Like, I don't know. I'm kind of curious about it. And I feel like accepting it like that kind of like again to Corinne's point, like makes it seem less intimidating. And I think kind of is in line with what Courtney says too, right? Where she's just like waiting for the pain cave with like outstretched arms and is like, give me some of that. And it's like, that is so crazy, but also like I think you kind of have to have it that way because otherwise like it's going to suck and you're not going to be able to like push through it if your mental strength is not positive.
I love that it's curiosity that drives Courtney in that same vein, right? Like she's
Hmm.
curious about what that pain cave is going to look like. She's curious about that new experience. And she even said that about CIM. Like she
Hmm.
was like,
Right.
whole new pain cave. So
Right.
exciting. Like learn
Yeah.
something completely different. And like that's what's driving her forward. And I love that like tie into optimism to curiosity to acceptance, whatever it might be. Like that's super cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, we're touching on something too. It's like that I touched on at the very beginning is like this whole concept of like, okay, is resilience, is it something that you have or that you don't have? But it sounds like, from all these experiences, it's something that you've practiced and like developed, right? Use these hardships or these things to realize, oh, okay, actually resilience isn't maybe what I thought it was. And so like this is why this I pulled this paper that I was reading through one of my projects. And it's a paper that says how coaching climate shapes resilience, the science of gratitude, environment, and performance. And to be honest, when I first read the title, I'm like, what? Like science of gratitude? Like, what is this? And I've like since then I kind of like went over like down the rabbit hole of some of these studies that were actually like, pretty convincing and like very well done and like, measurable changes that happened in these athletes, like either, self-reported attitudes or even in like their performances. So kind of just like a quick intro to the study. This paper is by Chen et al. It's published in 2024. And they conducted a 3-year longitudinal study, 289 high school athletes. And this is also why I liked it because I think it's like focusing on youth, and how that can translate because I mean that's a big problem of like longevity in sport and it's a very challenging time. So 289 high school athletes across 49 teams to examine how a team's quote unquote grateful climate influences individual psychological resilience over time. You did use repeated surveys across 5 time points. They measured long-term level gratitude, individual gratitude, and resilience. And results showed that teams with stronger grateful climates fostered higher individual gratitude, which in turn predicted greater long-term resilience. And individual gratitude fully mediated the relationship between team climate and resilience, demonstrating that coaching environment and team culture play a role in developing athletes' psychological resilience, not just individual mindset. And that I think is a really important piece that we'll talk about a little bit later.
Did they talk about like how is that expressed by the athletes or like what was the thing that, was the kind of that trigger for like what is a grateful environment? Like I'm really like that is also I'm very curious about like how is that
Right.
expressed by the survey or by
Hmm.
the athletes responding to the survey?
Right. And that this is so there's actually and I can pull this in the show notes too. It's like there's in these repeated surveys, it's basically like with a gratitude, like literally a workshop and like a survey based off of previous studies that they've used this survey um basically to report in athletes and in individuals. It's like kind of an accepted one. They have like it's kind of like the RPE scale that like we've accepted as like rate of perceived exertion. It's like this defined measure of gratitude, and it's just based off of like the responses to these things that they've quantified and used in other research studies. So it's based off this one individual like research in gratitude.
So
But
like
I can
they're using like a Likert scale or something to measure what the participants view their current environment as, like, oh, they're in a grateful environment versus they're not, or like, is that what you're
um
saying?
Yeah, I think it can be, I think I have to look more into the thing, but if it's like on a scale, like the RPE scale, there can be ones it's like 0 to 100 or 0 to 50, right? It can be based on the survey they're reporting. It's like a scaled version, like 0 to 5, where 0 is defined as not grateful, and they can like pick on the scale, almost
Okay.
like, yeah. And so
Yes,
like,
it's kind of like a 1 to 6, like they
So it's like
strongly disagree
line
to strongly
item.
yeah.
agree type
Hmm.
of thing. And
Mhm.
it's like, I just wonder, I'm just always curious, like, what is the phrasing of the question when it comes to
And
like, how
this
Yeah,
is
great
so
is it?
actually,
there's
How grateful are you? Because I love that.
yeah,
well,
so
this
I
is
feel like they're
actually
just
interesting.
measuring perceived of their environment, right? Like how
Yes,
the
Perceptions of their
athletes
environment.
perceived their environment.
right,
Yeah. Yeah,
right.
yeah. Okay.
And that's a really important distinction, right? Because the perceived is like what
Mhm.
obviously it's very individual. And this is also really interesting that they have this on various qualitative studies because different verbs and like verbiage and words mean different things to different people. So those are predefined, and I guess like in the statistical analysis of these surveys, that's how they've dealt with those differences, but they choose the survey based off of I think like, the language, and that's basically already accepted that this is what it means with gratitude. But of course, it's interpreted with a grain of salt versus each individual. So it's like perceived, right? Um, and yeah, but this is an interesting thing, like coming from a hard science background to then like more qualitative research. It's an interesting.
I mean,
It
I've done that in like studies that were like looking at the like how comfortable a jacket is, and it's like I'm literally
yeah.
holding a 0 to like 100 thing, and they point, and we were measuring. We were using a tape measure to measure physically like where they
Mhm.
were on
Mhm.
this scale. So it's like technically that should be a hard science, but they were literally pointing on like a
Right.
frowny face to happy face bar
Mm,
effectively, and we were measuring where they were
I
physically marking
know.
it on it.
Yeah, even the like current preferred RPE scale is the one with the photos now for a
Yeah.
lot of studies.
I love it. It's like frowny face. I am
No,
frowny face.
seriously.
Like
Yeah.
working hard, working easy.
Yeah. But I mean, like even with this, that last section, like the coaching environment, that somehow played a
Uh-huh.
role, like in team culture, obviously that makes sense, but also like in individuals.
Hmm.
Yeah,
So
just
it's
being
like,
comfortable, right? Saying like, yeah, I
right.
like my coach, or that like I feel comfortable with my coach, or
Like
whatever it might be,
supported.
right? Like where
Hmm.
you are in
Well,
that environment is super important.
and that makes sense, right? That totally makes sense. But it's then, I
Hmm.
think to me, where that was really interesting is that is an environment that can be purposefully like fostered and like cultivated. And so I think we've gotten many questions on this podcast before. It's like, okay, well, how do I as a parent or how do I as a coach like influence the environment that my athlete, high school athlete, youth athlete is in so that they stay in sport longer. They have like a good experience. And I think this directly speaks to that. And I think just yeah, so it's like how can we in the trail running community or people like foster a coaching climate that shapes this resilience and performance in sport? Yeah, and I've kind of put in here, it has so many other implications in burnout, as I kind of alluded to, and um, longevity in sport. Well, like, outside of just like performance in and of itself. But yeah, um,
Which
I'm
which makes sense, right? It's like you're not going to stay in something that makes you inherently really unhappy. I would hope anyway.
yeah. And so
Ooh, and
before,
I just have some examples that might be helpful. Like,
yeah.
so the two surveys that you were talking about, there's one that was expressly used with Chinese athletes, which was about the 5 item gratitude questionnaire, and then there was a six. There's another one, the GQ6 or the gratitude questionnaire 6 item form, and so it asks things like, "I have so much in life to be thankful for. If I had to list everything that I was grateful for, it would be a very long list. When I look at the world, I don't see much to be grateful for. I am grateful for a wide variety of people." Like, and then it's like you're like saying like, yeah, strongly disagree, disagree, slightly disagree, neutral, strongly agree, etc. Like that's like they're using that Likert scale, and they're posing these like a series of questions about being grateful or not being grateful, and how an athlete might be identifying with that. Because I was like conceptually, I was like, I need to understand what's happening here, and so they are like these very well validated questionnaires. But I'm
Mhm.
like, it's psychology is wild. Sorry, continue.
No, I know it is exactly. And that was kind of something hard for me to conceptualize when I first was like reading these things. But again, okay, so but then again, like what is psychological resilience? I kind of wanted to talk about that before we go into a little bit of just like just some questions to you guys. So they kind of divide it into two categories, like minimal impact resilience, they describe it as. So this is like, you think of it as like a short-term bounce back resilience. Like I got through the bad patch, or like maybe like if we're looking at a race, like a hard moment in a workout or a hard moment in like a run. So you can kind of be like resilient in like on a shorter time scale. And then emergent resilience is this long-term adaptation. This is how I change in response to suffering. And basically, an example of this is like learning how to stay oriented during repeated DNFs or injuries, or like, you kind of still keep trying, even though you have like maybe some, like a few hardships, like, but you still keep on the path, and like you are this more like long form, like emergent resilience. And they're showing that in this, basically there's a feedback. It's like obviously minimal impact like resilience that feeds into the emergent resilience. But again, they're saying only if that environment facilitates it. I think that makes sense conceptually. They're putting a lot of like scientific words to it, but um, yeah, or definitions, I guess they're trying to define it that way. But um, yeah, have you like? I think I don't know. I kind of put it in this question of like, how do you see as athletes confusing like grit with resilience, of like pushing through it even though they kind of like hate it and they're not like really in love with the process or like kind of the long-term goals. And has that maybe like, I don't know, does that get in the way of these long-term adaptations, or like get them kind of like sticking with it? Or yeah, have you guys observed this at all
I mean, I
in
feel like resilience in this sense kind of is aligned with like self-efficacy and kind of how they look at that in sport. And maybe they've kind of turned to resilience over the term self-efficacy. Self-efficacy being like your ability, your belief in your ability to accomplish something.
yeah,
And I feel
self-belief?
like
Mhm.
resilience kind of falls in line with that, right? Where it's like a continued belief that you're able to do something, or an ability to bounce back after disappointment, which could be like strength of self-efficacy or strength of belief. And if you have a higher strength of belief, maybe that makes you more resilient in the like sports psych lingo. But when I read this question initially, it also made me think a lot about Neil Palace, who is a licensed social worker and does a lot of sports psych work. I met him when I was coaching for CTS, and we had this amazing conversation where I think I've said this on the podcast before, and there's literally a sticky note on my computer that is to remind me about this. And it simply is psychological flexibility is greater than mental toughness. Because I think we get stuck on this idea of like, I have to be tough, I have to be gritty, I have to push. And it's like, well, actually, I need to learn, I need to adapt, I need to adjust. And I think that same, like, while the idea of psychological flexibility being greater than mental toughness might be a slightly different idea, like a adjacent idea to resilience, I think they're related in the sense that I am learning that I am capable and I can have setbacks, but then I need to think about like what went wrong and adjust and know that I might have a setback in the future, but I'm gonna like lean on my support system, lean on my training partners, lean on my coach, lean on my significant other, lean on my friends, lean on the community to remind me that I'm capable, remind me that I've got a little tugboat of hope when things are gray. I find friends sometimes randomly on the trail and I want to quit my run. And I say, "Hey, can I just run with you for a little bit?" Because they're going to be my tugboat and get me through the hardship. And I'm adapting to the day that I thought I was going to have. And in that way, maybe that is like the difference between like quote unquote toughing it out and finding resilience and being able to deal with adversity.
Yeah.
Mm.
I think there's a lot of this too with like with some different studies and overlapping of how resilience, and I think you've said this a lot just then, Corinne. It's like this overall arching optimism of like believing it is overlapped with like self-efficacy, which is effectively self-belief. But this idea that like it will get better, or like there's a stark contrast of like wanting, and this is where this study kind of goes, is like facilitating an environment that actually aids in this belief to foster self-efficacy and self-belief, believing that setbacks are actually not the end goal, that these are the flukes, and that I will succeed in the long term, as opposed to the opposite, where I think there can be some coaching environments and some environments which facilitate almost like fear-based, saying that like, oh, well, if I keep failing, like this is, I'm just going to be here for forever. Like maybe this is the reality instead of kind of like flipping the script on that. Um, yeah.
Hmm. Yeah, I guess I don't really have any thoughts on that question necessarily because I think that Corinne just kind of spoke to it really well. But I did think that the short-term versus long-term resilience was really interesting because I think it's really easy to have a short-term bounce back. And I think that's kind of the point of this paper where it's like, cool, I got injured. I'm gonna get through this. Like, I'm gonna have all this motivation. I'm gonna cross train. I'm gonna get back to it. Or, oh, I got injured again. I'm gonna do this. But then I think like the long-term adaptation comes into play when like you just keep having these setbacks, right? And all of a sudden, I think it can work to your advantage or your disadvantage, where it could be that, yeah, maybe you've just become super resilient or, and I've seen this happen to a lot of athletes, and I've definitely experienced this myself, or you eventually just like kind of give up for a little bit, right? Because you're like, I don't know what to do anymore. I like keep getting this momentum to like persevere through this bad patch, persevere through this bad patch. But like, how many bad patches do I have to persevere through? And I think
Mhm.
that's really, really hard, right? Because it's like, yeah, repeated DNFs, repeated injuries, all of these setbacks is like really hard to keep just pushing. And so I think I just kind of wanted to acknowledge that I don't think I've 100% figured it out how to like do that all the time.
Yeah.
You know, it's hard.
Yeah, and I think that's what this well, in certain areas that they measured, right? It's like how do you facilitate that environment that enables that, right? And then maybe it can be a little bit harder as like individual sports kind of like, but we're still collectively a part of a team. But it's how and things that they measured in the study, it's like obviously with these like individual surveys. It's like they measured grateful team climate, individual gratitude, and psychological resilience and tried to figure out how they all were related. And they basically, yeah, they saw that the more team gratitude that they have, the more individual gratitude that they had, which increased overall resilience. And I think it's like,
Hmm.
yeah, like the gratitude piece, I think it's more than just like being grateful for something. I think that spills over into just feeling a part of a community. There's a lot of like this research that I was reading on the theory of like self-actualization, which is like personal excellence, like how and like three pillars that increase this, and it's community, autonomy, and competence. And it's like, so how do you like, and a lot of times, like you can, a community, you feel part of a team, right? That you feel overall happier and able to kind of like go through life and achieve things. Autonomy is like having a role. Like a lot of times in a team setting, you have a specific role that you're contributing to a team so then you can like win collectively. And then that competence is like feeling that you're good at something, like you're good at this thing. And I think that's a really interesting thing about a team is it provides that environment for all of three things. And as coaches, like you can help then, if one athlete is struggling in one of those three areas, like kind of like fit them in. And so I think that's where I
Yeah.
saw this kind of all bleeding
Hmm.
together.
Yeah, and I
But
think like to like your point too, I think a lot of people when they're injured or going with a setback, their default response is to withdraw, right?
mhm,
And like
yeah.
stay like by themselves and not go to their like run club or not go to their lifting class or not see their friends because they're wallowing in all of this. And I think to your
Mhm.
point, and what I've seen in my own life is like you feel so much better if you just keep your community even when things aren't going well because like you still need that community to support you even if like you're not running or you're not doing whatever it is that you normally see your community for, you know? And
Yeah.
like
It's the
yeah.
getting coffee. It's
Mhm.
the hanging out after what might have been a run club meetup. It's the me working live broadcasts for forever when I was injured and not running because I love
Mhm.
being part of that. It's crewing, it's volunteering and working an aid station. It's very easy to want to like retreat and avoid
Yeah.
when you're in a low.
Hmm.
And it's so important, I think, to find ways to still keep those connections going because it keeps
Hmm.
you, I think it helps to rebuild that resilience. It
Hmm.
helps to rebuild that sense of belonging that can be super important.
Yeah, because I think a lot of people, it's really easy when you're going through something that's very hard to truncate the things in your life into either like very good or very bad buckets. There's no gray zone. And so it's like, oh, I was loving this community because I was healthy and I was in it. Well, now I hate it because I'm not in it, right? And I can't be associated with it because, it's messed up and I hate it now because I can't be in it. It's like, no, we can have a gray zone where, yeah, maybe you're not in love with it as much as you are when you're able to enjoy it from a running perspective, but you can still like really enjoy it and stay connected and do things that still fill your cup, part of the way. It doesn't have to be like an ultimatum where it's like, oh, I'm in it or I'm not in it at all. And I think a lot of athletes, from at least my experience with a lot of people I've coached and stuff, kind of view it as black and white. And I don't think it has to be.
Yeah, totally. And this is like you alluded to a lot of that is like how like the question I kept on asking at the end of this is like, okay, well then how as coaches can we do this, right? Is like we're facilitating different environments, right? Like a resilient environment. But like, what do you do when you have an athlete that's injured? How do you like encourage them to still be a part? Like I see about it as like giving them a role to play out. And I think trail running is really cool in that instance where you can kind of get involved in like, the crewing and the volunteering and the supporting. But like sometimes it can get hard if you can't do the actual like activity itself.
Hmm.
Um, yeah. I
Yeah,
don't know if you had
totally.
any like tips or something that you do with any athletes. It's like that's something that I try to do. And then even sometimes I think that can actually, Keely, you alluded to this earlier, which I think is important. It's like, sometimes that actually means like taking a break. Sometimes as a coach, it's
Hmm.
really important to be like, hey, we actually need you to maybe take a step back from this. We've
Hmm.
talked about this before too on the podcast, like have some identity outside of sport because that can actually
Hmm.
be really helpful. And then like return to it when you're feeling a little bit better. But
Yeah.
that can be actually just as helpful as like, these other things that we were listing.
Oh, 100%. And it's like also oftentimes when we're injured, it's coming off of oftentimes, again, not always, but oftentimes it's coming off of like a really big training stint or something where we were like right on that line, right? We're toying with the line. We're like training a lot, we're doing all these things. It's kind of absorbing our identity. And then all of a sudden we're injured. And I think oftentimes we can go right into like overtrain mode to like overcompensate for this injury to be like, okay, well now my whole life is getting over this injury. And like that normally doesn't end well either. And so, yeah, I think like to your point, Hillary, it's like emphasizing to your athletes that, yeah, we do need to recover from this. That will require some PT and some cross training eventually. But at the end of the day, like maybe take a step back and reset and refine some of your values outside of running first. That gives your body a little more time to repair, if it is an injury you're dealing with, but it also lets you like reset with your community and remember what other things you like to do. Because I think sometimes we forget. And it's like,
Mhm.
well, no, there are other things that we like. And then that's only going to build your resilience later because you're going to have that mental recharge. You're going to refine your community and all these things that are going to make you a stronger person anyways.
Yeah. So yeah, no, I think I just kind of want to transition a little bit to this other, like another kind of part of the paper I think is like
God.
important to touch on. And it's this idea that like there's like this, the more resilient you can become, it has this like protective mechanism of some other things. But basically, I think we all know this. It's like in practice that like running is more than just physical. It's definitely mental. Like there's this whole thing in sports psychology. It's like the psychobiological model. Like fatigue is both mental and physical. We definitely know this. There's like perception of effort, motivation, like along with all the physiology that goes into like what makes us actually tired and ultimately like quit. But then but then there's also this really cool thing. It's that the more resilience, like the key link here is that that there's the more resilient the athletes become, there seems to be protective mechanism from this burnout prevention and longevity in sport. And there's a couple other papers we can kind of like put in the show notes if people want to kind of like dig into the weeds here. But yeah, I just thought that that was really interesting because it's something that I've really experienced with like, various injuries and things like this or wanting to kind of like um throw in the towel or whatever and trying so hard at this one thing. But it's like the more that you learn to kind of roll with the punches and just like, okay, it's not working out right now, but like let's maybe view 3 months down the line, or even if it takes a year, and surrounding yourself with people that actually help facilitate that, like coaches, friends, people in general. Um, that has been kind of the game changer of, if I was quitting sport like 10 years ago versus still in it now. I think that's even more important because this they were, this study was showing, it was high school students, right? So developing these skills like younger, I think can have a really big impact on their career, if not like athletic career, but the relationship with sport in, you know, high school, college, and then post collegiately.
Yeah, I
Um,
think it's also just like, I don't know, learning what you have control over and what you don't have control over. In some of that regard too, like stuff happens that you have no control over whatsoever. And like I feel like I have had to learn that over time. Actually, biathlon was a great sport for learning that because you can't control the weather. You get to the shooting range and the wind is doing Lord knows what.
mhm.
That's luck of the draw a little bit. And you can't get frustrated over things that you've no control over. It's a waste of energy in a lot of ways. And so it's like there's a lot of injuries like that, right? Like sometimes there are pieces of it that you had control over. Did you run through something? Are you not taking good care of yourself? But some things are like dumb luck. And you can't, I think, like get lost in the weeds of things that you don't have control over. And that could be relationships too. You like have to focus, I think, on like, how can I respond to this? How can I decide? Where am I deciding to put my energy? Am I going to read that thing that's going to make me really upset? Maybe not. Maybe it's not worth it. So I think it's like that idea too. I think reminds me of something similar in that regard of recognizing what you have control over and what you don't have control over and really not investing energy into the things that you don't have control over.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think because all of us are coaches, obviously, and uh maybe people who are listening to this are also coaches or like their parents, which is effectively a different type of coach to their athletes, well, to their, to their kids. And yeah, like so I wanted to like kind of talk about some things of like how do we actually like build this like grateful climate or like this climate of gratitude, um and how do we facilitate that as either coaches or just as individuals? I think it's actually really important, even if it's like you're not a coach, like the people around someone who's a like a significant other who's like a high performer, like how do you actually help facilitate this? And it's kind of in like the questions that you ask and how you're kind of framing things. And I think, all of us, I mean, I've heard all of us talk about this, in various ways, but it's something that that my coach emphasizes in me as well. But it's like effort recognition as opposed to like just overly focusing on outcomes or times or things like this. And even and in particular in those moments when things don't like work out exactly how you'd plan, like really focusing on the effort put in. And that also is like it kind of shifts the emphasis, but then also I think it helps to emphasize that like, okay, we're gonna start like it helps encourage athletes to work on like weaknesses and put in like a very good effort, even if it doesn't necessarily result in winning, which I think can sometimes be the wrong emphasis. Do you guys like that or do you guys not like that?
The emphasis specifically, or
Yeah, like the emphasis on the effort, like, or do you think that that is not a good way to go about it?
I don't know. I mean, I feel like in my own coaching practice, I don't put a lot of emphasis on outcome. I put a lot of emphasis on journey, on showing up, on, putting the work in and knowing when to quit, knowing when to say I need a break, knowing when to take a rest day as well. Those are just as
Mhm.
important as knowing when to tough out the interval workout that feels bad. But like that's my if in
That feels
that
effort
regard,
based. Yeah.
Mhm.
like that's where my emphasis is. It's not I think effort feels good, but results I feel like is the wrong for me personally has been like the wrong area of focus.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, for
Yeah,
sure.
I think one thing I make every athlete do, and it was very obvious this year where a lot of my athletes had races where the races got canceled last minute or got canceled in the middle of the race or like they had to DNF because they got sick and like there were all of these weird instances where people DNF'd. Um, and our call after races, which I always do, 1 week or within the week after the race most of the time, I always have them reflect on the race and give me like three negatives, like things they want to improve on, things they thought they could do better, things they want to change for next time. Whether that's during the training journey to it that they could have changed or things how they responded to things in the race. And then I also make them do three positives, even amidst like a really silly race. Like, right, maybe they had to DNF at mile 20 of 100 and it was because they had some crazy thing happen. I still want to have like the positives with those races. And so I always make athletes pick at least three things that they're grateful for or that they were stoked about on that race because I think to like our previous points, like it's all about the journey. And so if we're just emphasizing things we can, improve and we're not giving time to the things that we did well, like that's not going to foster a very positive environment.
Yeah. Yeah, no, you so like yeah, you alluded to basically that thing. I think like having reflections after anything, after hard
Hmm.
sessions, after races, after
But they're
I think
good
it would
ones. Yeah.
yeah, like the good ones, the bad ones, like good and bad. I think it's actually really important, but to have like a realistic reflection that's not necessarily based off of yeah, like winning, losing time, not ever
Mm-mm.
like those things, but like what did you learn? Like that curious piece that we, how we started off talking about resilience in the
Hmm.
first place. I think that then helps like coming at it from a learning perspective, like a curious perspective, that then also helps just to like build resilience, right? It's kind of
Hmm.
everything is coming in full circle. And that's a really important role that coaches can play. And also I think like individuals who are
Hmm.
just like, in the community, the immediate community of athletes.
Hmm. Yeah, because I mean, even races that on paper look really good, I'd say from my own races and some of the athletes I've coached, and then just other athletes I've talked to, like rarely if you're asked to reflect on a race that you crushed, are you going to say one of the best parts of it was like the outcome, you know? It's like it's going to be some part of the race or part of your journey to the race that you felt like you pushed really hard through that led to that outcome. But rarely are you just citing the outcome, right? So it's like it's all
Like you're
kind
like,
of
I
about,
won. It's like
yeah, it's like
that's not
actually
the most
that's
important
not,
part.
yeah.
Yeah.
It's like I
Yeah.
had this low and I figured it out. Or
Yeah,
I
right?
like
Yep. Hmm.
I stayed on top of my nutrition the whole time. Or like I'm really proud that I set time aside to get in those back-to-back long runs or
Right.
whatever it is. It was like
Hmm.
those are the wins as opposed to the and of course, like I mean, I coached a handful of pros and like
Yeah.
obviously like yeah, we got podium goals, we got
Hmm.
winning goals for
Hmm.
sure, but they are successful when they nail the things that are maybe more
Yeah.
aligned with like their morals and values around racing
Hmm.
and their respect for the work they're doing over, yeah, it feels good to win,
Right.
but so many of us win so few times that you can't just be in it for that one outcome,
Totally.
right?
Yeah.
It'd
Or
be
if you are,
disappointing.
yeah, like I've had races where maybe I have won, but I'm not proud of them, right? So it's kind of
Yeah.
like you have to have both things kind of going. And you can be proud of a race that doesn't look good on paper, and you can be not proud of a race that looks really good on paper. And it's because of like how you've handled yourself during kind of the journey that I
Yeah,
think
Yeah.
kind of equals how you feel.
I
Yeah, it's
agree.
interesting.
Yeah, and I think we've like obviously we've talked a lot about like setbacks and like resilience and stuff, but it also is this mindset that there's like there's so much still to learn always, right? And it's like fostering that. It's like just and if someone is lucky to win all the time, there's still, I mean, there's still a lot to learn even in that. And that kind of leads to this third like whatever like little I think not tip, but just something I think that like coaches or people again in an athletic community or the athletes themselves can do to foster this. And it's just having that like um I don't know, like I say like appreciation loops or like credits, like what is it that something, what did you do well, or even in a team environment, what did someone else do well that like helped you step it up. And or like I remember this when I played tennis of like showing it's like if like my teammate made a mistake and then she was like more pumped up but like didn't let her get it down, and it encouraged me to like stay on my mental game. Or someone just who's like a master of the sport who always just wants to improve. Yeah, I think it's like that kind of creates more of like a shared responsibility. And I think we can even do that even if, we're not necessarily in a like a team sport, like, you know, on a tennis court or on a basketball court, like
I
playing
w
together.
Yeah, I was just trying to figure out what the app was. And you don't need to do this as an app. When I was like going through a really, really rough time on the US biathlon team and I didn't know I was super overtrained and that's where maybe my depression was coming from and maybe where my insomnia was coming from. Side tangent. But
Those are related.
my my it turns out chicken or the egg, it's all kind of together. It's a mess.
Oh,
But my psychologist that I was working with at the time had me start a gratitude journal. And every day I had to write three things I was grateful for.
Mm.
And I feel like I saw a post from Tony McCann recently or Danny Moreno or both
Mhm.
where there's an app that does this and I think
Mm.
you can like select a group of friends to share with and so
Mm.
it's like you're posting your gratitude and it's like to a closed group of people where they can also post their gratitudes and I thought that was like I don't need an
Mm.
app to do that. I can probably just do it in my journal, but it's like that idea, that practice of saying and sometimes my gratitudes were like I got out of bed.
Yeah.
Like I didn't just like rot in bed for hours. I like got to bed. I like made myself dinner. I like it was like sometimes the gratitudes were very low bars, but it's important to
Hmm.
build those habits of like recognizing what you can be grateful for when times are good or when times are bad. And that appreciation loop, I
Hmm.
think, is similar to that. And it can even be in a team setting, right? It's like appreciating those around you. But
Yeah.
as individual athletes in the trail and ultra space, it's like maybe it's appreciating your support system and also like recognizing what you're grateful for.
Yeah.
Yeah. I really like that. Do you still do the journal?
I haven't recently, but I've got a couple. I love journals and I love buying myself journals. It's kind of it's one of my weaknesses. And I just got a new like nighttime routine journal. And I think that that's going to be part of my nighttime routine
Nice.
Mm,
is reflecting on something I'm grateful for each day.
mm,
Something I do each day. I have like a daily credit, and on certain times I'm like struggling with I don't know, identity outside of sport. I try to like focus more on that, or like things that seem inherently hard to give myself credit for. I try to like go out of my way to do those things.
mm.
Um,
Yeah,
yeah.
I really like that. I think it's really easy to like fall off the practice of
Mm.
appreciating things that are going well in your life, especially when you're hustling.
Yeah.
So, yeah,
Yeah.
I like the reminder to just like take a little minute, couple minutes every day, even when things are going well, right? So that the practice is there when things don't go well.
Yeah, and I
Yeah.
think I mean this is kind of like to wrap things up here too, but like the on just like talking about this study and this paper. It's like we train our bodies with such intentionality every day, right? Like we have training logs and training journals, but it's like we have to do the same thing with our mindset and these things like resilience. It's like it's a skill. That's what he's like saying, you know?
At the end of the day, that's like the take home is that
Yeah.
it's like training your stomach, right? Don't like blow your race by not training your stomach.
Yeah, we
Don't
gotta
like,
yeah.
yeah, gotta train your brain too.
Yeah, and like as an individuals and as athletes and as part of a bigger collective community, we can help each other in that. So it's like I think I don't know, I would just encourage, you know, it's like how can you as an individual train your resilience in your daily life, but then also how can you encourage it in like a greater environment? And
Mhm.
yeah, I think that's just something fun to think about.
Awesome. I think that's good. I think one of the ways you can do that too, one of the things I have athletes do who are really kind of in that like spirally zone is that I encourage them to, I use Training Peaks for coaching, to
Mm.
put a note at the end of the week. And that
Yeah.
note is a reflection of what they did that week. What did they do well? What did they kind of drop the ball on? Because I think when you're just in your training log every day and you're like, ah, today was fine, or like, today was hard, it's really hard to recognize the work that you are putting in. And so I think sometimes taking that reflection at the end of the week or on a Monday, reflecting on the past week is really good practice to say, okay, like what did I get? What did I accomplish last week? I accomplished this. What did I do well? I got out the door when I said I was going to get out the door. Or like, ooh, I got busy and strength got cut, or I didn't go to bed, or whatever it is. Like just kind of that reminder of like something I want to continue to work on, something that I did well, something that I didn't do as well. And I think that that can be like a good like forward momentum for recognizing that you are putting in work even when it doesn't feel like it. Beautiful. I like it. I dig it. It's perfect.
Good things to reflect
Okay.
on as we move into like, you know, another season, another year, like goal setting. It's like that could be a fun one to incorporate.
It is. It's a good one given that we are in the 2026 sprint right now of like getting plans
Mhm.
aligned for the new year. And so with that, we're going to start to wrap up the podcast for today, including heading towards our Society Slam. But before we do so, we have to give a shout out to the lovely folks over at Rabbit. And again, this is kind of like your last minute warning. Did
Mhm.
you not get your mom something? What about your girlfriend? What about your running friend? What about your sister?
What about your brother?
I technically they do sell men's clothing. I always
Yeah,
forget about
it's
that.
good men's clothing too.
While they are a women-owned company, they do in fact make men's apparel as well. Also looks very cozy. Um, but you can do so by going over to runningrabbit.com and using the code Hoppy Holidays for 10% off. So
Mhm.
skedaddle, hop on over to runningrabbit.com.
Yeah. Yeah, we have some cool society slams today too. I'll kick us off with the first one. It's coming out of Angel City Women's Soccer League, and it was sent in from a listener from the UK. They had posted a YouTube video, Angel City, talking about a surprise they had made for their soon-to-be mom. And so that's kind of some context around this Society Slam. She says, "Hi guys, thanks so much for all the work you do with the podcast. It's great. I thought you'd be interested in seeing what Angel City have been doing recently. One of their players, Claire Emsley, who is Scottish, is pregnant, and they just released a reel where they presented her with this room they've made at their training ground for new mothers with a baby cot, nappies, comfy chairs, etc. It seems like they're really committed to supporting her through her pregnancy. Both her and them have also regularly been sharing content of how she's been taking part in training, etc. I think it seems like a great example of how professional sports teams can support women through pregnancy and motherhood." Um, and yeah, I couldn't agree more. I think they've been doing some really cool videos around this. I saw that come up on my news feed as well.
Hmm.
I'll
Didn't they show
link
a
it in the
video of her
show
like doing her
notes.
sprints and like what
Yeah,
percent of
she ran
what
like
percent?
83% of her like highest speed or something while she was 26 weeks pregnant or something like that. I think it's 81%.
It was
And
crazy. She's
yeah,
like
it's
they
wild.
finally were like, "Hey, I think we got to stop training," but
Yeah.
she's like trained through much of
Yeah.
her pregnancy.
Yeah, it's just really cool. I think it's cool that they're highlighting that you can still train through pregnancy. It's also cool that they're, maybe questioning if she should keep training. And then they're also providing her with a space to be able to come to be with her community when she has a newborn, right? Like, again, keeping people in their community when they have these changes in life. And again, she's not going to be injured, but she's not going to be playing right away. And like, I think that's really cool. Is like, oh, we're making it so you can still come here. Like, this is a safe place for you.
Yeah, I think this is the same player maybe who like used the ultrasound machine in the training room to like tell her teammates she was pregnant, I feel like, and they
That's
like
so
ultrasound
cool.
the baby.
Oh my
Uh,
gosh.
I
Yeah, it's
feel
so
like I
fun.
saw this, or there's a lot of pregnant players in the women's professional soccer league right now. That's great. Okay, I'll take the next one because it says hi, Corinne, right at the
Hmm.
top. There's a lot of recs for me because they're like, Corinne needs to race because she DNF'd UTCT. It says, "Hi, Corinne. I'm Nick Drozdiak." I actually think he said hi during the race. And I think he said, "Love your podcast," and like sprinted away from me.
Oh,
An
love
avid trail
that.
runner who likes your podcast and also signed up for UTCT and DNF'd too. I DNF'd just after Ludundno. Oh, bummer. Made it off Table Mountain. That sucks. Before I could get to Souther Road or Souther Peak, I need to go back there. What an awesome course and race and country. Do you know where I can find some course recon online? I read Matt Bocus's race report, but looking for something even more in depth. I wish I could pick your brain and the course after kilometer 40. Do you know any place I can find some pics and descriptions of the last 3 quarters of the course? The live broadcasts are all up on YouTube and they show a bunch of them. I mean, I think including Hillary's race in 2023, 2022, 2022. They've got footage from that live broadcast. And so that would be actually a great way to recon it. I was looking at some of that too to see what times women were coming across the beach to Nordhook, for example, and like what the sand looked like. So that honestly, Nick, would be your best bet is that all the live broadcasts from previous editions, and this was, like 3, 4 years on, are up on YouTube. And that would be a great way to skim through um what Chappie's Peak looks like, what the beach to Nordhook looks like. That it is pretty well documented. And then once you're back to Contention Glen, you're on the 100K course, so you can use the 100K live broadcast for that section as well. That's my rec. Okay, Hillary, you get to tell me what I'm racing.
Okay, race rags for Corinne. Here we go. Hiya, just listen to the most recent podcast. Thanks for sharing, Corinne. Maybe you should consider a race over here in Bainbridge. It's February 7th, 50K of trail and road. And they gave a website for you to check out.
Oh, they also want me to come to Sydney. I love it. Sign me up.
Okay. And then another suggestion for Corinne's next run is the UTA run in mid-May in the
There
Blue
we
Mountains.
go.
So just outside Sydney. The other good thing is it's is 2 weeks before Zahoka half, which is a road run, but sees the best of Sydney. So looks like you have your race schedule
Looks
planned
like
out.
I'm going to Australia in May. Okay, sounds good. Sign me up.
Yeah,
It'll
that
be as
sounds
hot, maybe.
amazing.
Yeah.
Ooh, I think that's a great idea.
UTA in May. Okay. What is it like? Twist my rubber arm. Like it's really easy to
Hey,
twist my arm right now.
I don't have any rotations in April,
Ooh,
so
going to Australia.
I'm going there in February.
Beth McKenzie, we're coming for you. Okay. I think that's it for today. Thank you so much for listening, for giving us 5 stars because you love us, for leaving us really wonderful reviews, for going over to runnerrabbit.com and buying super sweet gear, for being with us on this journey. We've got one more episode before the end of the year, and we'll break some news, I think, on that episode. So until next time, we'll see you out in the trails.